The Billionaire's Hidden Muse. Chapter 1. Clashing Worlds. Ethan Blackwood was a name that commanded power, a presence that turned heads, and a glare that could freeze anyone in their tracks. The 34-year-old CEO of Blackwood Enterprises had built his empire from the ground up, making it one of the most formidable fashion conglomerates in the world. Yet, despite his billions, his perfectly tailored suits, and his chiseled jawline, women threw themselves at him, yet he remained distant, uninterested. His heart had been broken once, and since then he had sworn off love, choosing to rule his empire with an iron fist. Then came her Isla Carter. At 22, she was young, timid, and brilliant. She was a fresh intern at Blackwood Enterprises working in the design department, but no one knew her secret. She was the enigmatic designer Z, the elusive fashion genius who had won countless international awards. She had kept her identity hidden from the industry, preferring to let her work speak for itself. When she was accepted as an intern, it wasn't because she needed the experience. It was because she wanted to observe him. Ethan Blackwood had unknowingly purchased one of her exclusive designs through a third-party dealer, and she wanted to see how he would handle it, but she hadn't expected him to be so insufferable. Chapter 2. Sparks and Ice. The first time they met, Isla had accidentally bumped into Ethan in the elevator.
"Watch where you're going," Ethan snapped, looking down at the young woman who had collided into him.
"Sorry," she stammered, gripping her portfolio tightly.
Ethan's piercing blue eyes scanned her briefly before dismissing her existence entirely. He turned back to his phone, barking orders to his assistant.
That should have been their only interaction, but fate had other plans. From the moment Ethan stepped into Isla's office, the tension was palpable.
"This is a professional workplace."
Alexander growled, his piercing gray eyes locking onto hers as he noticed her pink sketchbook.
"If you're here to doodle, you're in the wrong place."
Bella bristled but kept her head down. "I don't doodle," she murmured.
"What was that?"
"Nothing, sir." The CEO's scowl deepened. He was used to women swooning at his feet, but this one, a mere intern, was seemingly unaffected by his presence. He dismissed her, thinking she wouldn't last a week. Over the next few weeks, Bella proved him wrong. She was exceptional at her job, and despite his gruff demeanor, she refused to let him intimidate her. One afternoon, Alexander found himself watching her as she worked, her delicate fingers sketching intricate designs, her brows furrowed in concentration. He should have been focused on his company's latest merger, but instead he found himself drawn to her, and he hated it.
"You're late."
"I was finalizing a design," she replied without looking at him. He didn't like that she was unfazed by his tone, but he liked the fire in her eyes even less. It made his chest tighten in a way that was unfamiliar.
"You think designing some fancy dresses is more important than being on time?"
"My designs are worn by queens and celebrities, Mr. Steele. I'd say they're quite important."
"You say that like you know Z personally."
That caught his attention. Bella only smiled. That should have been their only interaction, but fate had other plans. Ethan's assistant had made a grave mistake. A crucial dress design was misplaced, and the only person who could sketch something just as brilliant in record time was Isla. When she presented her sketch to Ethan, his eyes darkened.
"Who the hell are you?"
"I'm just an intern, sir."
"You expect me to believe this is your work?"
"Yes." Ethan's lips pressed into a thin line. He didn't trust people, and he certainly didn't believe in miracles.
"Fine. You'll assist my lead designer for this collection, but if I catch you lying, you're out."
Chapter 3. A Love in the Shadows. Days turned into weeks, and Isla found herself drawn to Ethan in ways she hadn't expected. He was cold, distant, and at times infuriatingly arrogant, but he was also brilliant. Beneath the gruff exterior, she caught glimpses of a man who had once loved and lost. Ethan, on the other hand, couldn't get Isla out of his mind. She wasn't like the women he usually encountered, superficial, eager for his wealth. She was quiet but bold when it came to her designs. She was genuine. And to his horror, he realized he was starting to care. Chapter 4. Falling for Grumpy CEO. The slow burn. Despite their clashing personalities, Isla and Ethan found themselves drawn to each other in ways neither could understand nor resist. Ethan, known for his cold and calculated demeanor, started noticing the little things about Isla, like how she bit her lip when she was deep in thought, like how her fingers moved with such grace when she sketched, like how she always smelled like vanilla and fresh linen. He told himself it was just curiosity, but curiosity shouldn't make his heart race when she smiled. Curiosity shouldn't make him furious when other men looked at her. Curiosity shouldn't make him want to kiss her senseless. For Isla, Ethan was a mystery. One moment he was gruff and distant. The next he was watching her like she was the only thing in the room. And then, one fateful night, everything changed. Chapter 5. Isla collapsed. It had been a grueling 72 hours for Isla. Between juggling the upcoming gala, Ethan's impossible standards, and keeping her designer Z secret intact, she had barely eaten or slept. Ethan, oblivious at first, had been barking orders as usual.
Redo the stitching on the dress. The sketches need more refinement. You call this an original piece?
Isla, determined not to break, pushed through, until she couldn't. It happened so fast. One moment, she was standing in the studio, flipping through fabric swatches. The next, her vision blurred, her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the floor.
Isla. Damn it, Isla. You're burning up. Ethan caught her just in time, panic flashing in his icy blue eyes. He scooped her up effortlessly, his grip firm yet gentle.
Her lashes fluttered weakly. I'm fine.
Shut up! His voice was sharp, but there was undeniable concern beneath it.
He carried her straight to his private penthouse, where he personally tucked her into bed. For the next 2 days, Ethan never left her side. He took care of her himself. When she woke up, she found Ethan sitting at the edge of her bed, sleeves rolled up, feeding her soup with the most unimpressed expression.
Who the hell works themselves sick?
You do?
That's different. I'm a CEO. You're not supposed to push yourself like this.
A small, shy smile curled her lips. You were worried about me.
He scoffed, looking away. I was worried about my company losing a competent designer. Don't flatter yourself.
But the way his fingers brushed against her forehead so tenderly told a different story. Chapter 7. Ethan's Petty Revenge, the Fake Injury. After Isla recovered, she found herself warmer toward Ethan, and he hated it. Not because he didn't like her soft smiles, not because he didn't crave her attention, but because he didn't know how to handle it. So, being the grumpy billionaire baby that he was, Ethan decided to do something ridiculous. Ethan had been driving home late at night when a car lightly bumped into his. There were no injuries, no damages, nothing. But when he walked into the office the next day, he was limping like he had just fought in a war. Ethan, what happened?
It was tragic, a car accident. The doctors say I might not survive the emotional trauma.
Oh my God, do you need anything? Are you okay? Yes. This was exactly what he wanted. Ethan slumped onto the couch in his office, fake winced, and extended his arms toward her.
I need assistance.
She hesitated. Assistance?
Yes, I require a nurse.
Her lips parted in disbelief. You have a private medical team.
But I want you.
Silence. Heat rushed to Isla's cheeks. You want me? She echoed. Shit, that sounded way too intimate.
Ethan cracked one eye open, smirking. To take care of me. Yes.
You're ridiculous. But despite her protests, Isla spent the entire day catering to him. She brought him coffee, adjusted the pillows on his couch, even cut his steak at lunch because his injuries were too severe to hold a knife. By the time evening rolled around, Isla was exasperated. You've been miraculously injured all day. And yet you were fine when you yelled at a shareholder this morning.
You enjoyed taking care of me, he murmured, his voice low and dangerous. You care about me.
You're insufferable. But as she stormed out of the office, her heart raced wildly against her ribs. And Ethan, watching her leave, grinned for the first time in years. Because for the first time in his life, he had finally found someone worth fighting for. Chapter 7. When Love is No Longer Denied. Isla blushes, a little too often. Ethan Blackwood had a secret. It wasn't that he was a billionaire. It wasn't that he secretly enjoyed overpriced lattes despite claiming black coffee was superior. No, his secret was far more dangerous. He had discovered that Isla Carter blushed far too easily, and he was obsessed with it. And then he became addicted to making her cheeks turn pink. Exhibit A. The Elevator Incident. One morning, Isla and Ethan found themselves alone in the company elevator, heading up to the 48th floor. The space was quiet, save for the soft hum of classical music playing overhead. Isla was reviewing design sketches on her tablet, utterly unaware that Ethan was watching her.
He leaned in slightly. Are you always this serious?
She blinked up at him. Excuse me?
You're always frowning at that screen. What if I start thinking you secretly hate your job?
I don't.
Then why do you look guilty? Isla bit her lip, and that was his undoing. His eyes darkened. You do that a lot, you know.
She swallowed. Do what?
That? His gaze dropped to her mouth. Biting your lip like that, it's distracting. Ethan chuckled. There it is again. You're blushing.
Heat rushed up her neck, blooming across her cheeks. I am not, she protested, her face turning even redder. The elevator doors opened.
Ethan walked out first, then paused, glancing over his shoulder. Liar!
The jacket move. It was a cold evening, and Isla had stupidly forgotten her coat. They were outside the office building, waiting for Ethan's driver to pull up. Isla shivered slightly, trying to play it off. Ethan, of course, noticed. Without a word, he shrugged off his ridiculously expensive, custom-made Italian suit jacket and draped it over her shoulders. Ethan, you don't have to.
Shut up and take it. His tone was gruff, but there was undeniable warmth in his gaze.
She clutched the jacket, drowning in his scent. Sandalwood, crisp linen, and something so distinctly him.
Better. His lips twitched. You're blushing again.
Isla groaned. Oh my God, stop keeping count. Chapter 8. Villains Rise. Not everyone was happy about Isla's growing presence in Ethan's life. Victoria orchestrated an elaborate plan to humiliate Isla during a gala, exposing a fake scandal about her being a fraud. Then there was Liam Cross, Ethan's cunning business rival, who would do anything to take Blackwood Enterprises down, including using Isla's secret against her. Chapter 9. Villain's Trap. Victoria's devious plan. Victoria Lancaster had never been a woman to accept defeat, especially not when it came to Ethan Blackwood. As the CEO of Lancaster Elite, a rival fashion empire, she had been Ethan's fiancée once, until he called off the engagement, realizing he didn't love her. Now, she wanted him back, and the only obstacle in her way was Isla Carter. She leaked a fake news story to the media, claiming that Isla had been plagiarizing designs from designer Z and selling them under Blackwood Enterprises. She spread rumors among the elite fashion circles, whispering that Isla was a fraud who had been stealing designs from the elusive genius. Then she manipulated Isla's colleagues, feeding them lies that Isla had been seducing Ethan to climb the corporate ladder. It didn't take long before whispers turned into full-blown gossip. To seal the trap, Victoria ensured that at the upcoming Blackwood Enterprises Gala, where Isla was set to showcase her latest designs, a hidden scandal would be exposed. A fake client with supposed proof that Isla had stolen designs. Everything was in place. But she wasn't the only one plotting against Isla. Liam's ruthless betrayal. Liam Cross had one goal: destroy Ethan Blackwood. He had once been Ethan's closest friend, until Ethan outmaneuvered him in a business deal years ago. Now, as the CEO of Cross Global, Liam wanted revenge, and what better way than to humiliate Ethan's newest protege? Liam had secretly hacked into Isla's laptop, gathering personal sketches, concept ideas, and unfinished drafts. Then, he arranged a deal with an international tabloid, selling the information and claiming it was undeniable proof that Isla had been forging her designs under a false identity. To make matters worse, he orchestrated an anonymous tip to the Fashion Guild, calling for an investigation against Isla. The news broke just days before the International Fashion Awards, where Isla was supposed to attend with Ethan. Chapter 10. The World Against Isla. The night of the Blackwood Enterprises Gala was meant to be Isla's moment to shine. She had spent weeks working on a breathtaking collection, pieces inspired by emotions, memories, and her hidden identity. But as she stepped onto the stage, ready to unveil her work, a loud voice echoed through the grand ballroom. Isla Carter is a fraud! Gasps filled the room as a video was projected onto the massive screens, showing sketches from Isla's laptop side by side with past designer Z collections. Liam's trap had worked. It looked as if she had copied every single one. Victoria stepped forward, feigning concern. I never wanted to believe it, but the evidence is overwhelming. Isla Carter has been stealing designs from designer Z all along. Ethan stood frozen, his jaw clenched. He didn't believe it, but Isla was silent. Her body trembled, her mind racing. If she revealed the truth now, everything would change.
Then the whispers turned into attacks. She was just sleeping with Ethan for success. She's a nobody. She stole from Designer Z, whoever they are.
Tears burned in Isla's eyes, but she took a deep breath. Not yet. She turned to Ethan, searching for something in his gaze. And for the first time, she saw doubt. A sharp pain cut through her heart. Even he wasn't sure. Isla just stared at Ethan, disappointed. Without another word, Isla stepped off the stage, walking through the sea of judgmental eyes, disappearing into the night. Chapter 11: Ethan Blackwood's Heartbreak. Ethan Blackwood had always prided himself on being untouchable. Nothing fazed him, nothing shook him, nothing broke him, until Isla Carter walked out of his life. The moment she turned her back on him, Ethan felt his chest crushed into a million pieces. She didn't stop, didn't look back, didn't hesitate. As he sat in the suffocating silence of his office, something hit him. He had spent years building an empire, years believing that love was a distraction, years convincing himself that he didn't need anyone, and yet Isla had slipped past every single wall he had built. She had made him laugh, made him care, made him want something he had spent his whole life running from. Her. Ethan exhaled, leaning back in his chair, pressing his palms against his face. He had been a damn fool. Ethan organized his men to look for Isla, but it was as though she vanished without a trace. He had lost her, and for the first time in his life, Ethan Blackwood knew what it felt like to be utterly, completely broken. Ethan had suspected it for a long time. He had watched Isla sketch with an effortless genius that no intern should have possessed. Had noticed how her designs bore an uncanny resemblance to Designer Z's work. So when he heard the rumors that Designer Z would finally reveal their identity tonight, he had known. It's her. It's always been her. And this time, he wasn't going to let her slip away. And there was only one thing left to do. He had to get her back, no matter what it took. Chapter 12: The Grand Revelation. Chapter 12: The Grand Revelation. The International Fashion Awards was the most prestigious event in the industry. It was where only the greatest minds in fashion were honored. And this year, Designer Z was set to receive the Lifetime Achievement Award, even though no one had ever seen their face. The Grand Hall was a dazzling spectacle of wealth and prestige. Ethan stood near the center, his sharp black tuxedo perfectly tailored, his presence commanding attention. But for the first time, he didn't care about the people around him. Didn't care about the whispers, the handshakes, the admiration. All he cared about was her. And so he waited. He ignored the socialites who tried to flirt with him. Ignored Victoria and Liam, ignored everything. Until the moment finally came.
The host took the stage. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for. For years, the world has wondered, who is Designer Z, the genius who has redefined fashion time and time again? Well, tonight, we finally have our answer. The crowd held its breath. A man walked onto the stage, not just any man, Gabriel Laurent, a world-renowned fashion legend, the mentor of some of the most successful designers in history. He smiled, lifting the microphone. I have watched this young designer grow from an unknown talent to the most brilliant mind in the industry. And now it is time the world knows her name.
He extended his hand. A spotlight beamed down. Isla Carter stepped forward. The entire hall erupted in shocked gasps and stunned silence. Cameras flashed. Murmurs spread like wildfire. She took the microphone. Her voice was steady. Good evening, everyone. I am Isla Carter. I am Designer Z. Gabriel Laurent stepped beside her, nodding proudly. Then, one by one, the world's most renowned designers, those who had secretly known the truth, stood and applauded. Elena Moretti, Italian haute couture legend. Kaido Hayashi, Japan's avant-garde genius. Amira Khalil, the Egyptian queen of textile innovation. One by one, they all stood for her. The applause grew louder, then the cheers. The world believed her. And in that moment, she had won. Chapter 14: Ethan's Redemption. One by one, they all stood for her. The applause grew louder, then the cheers. The world believed her. And in that moment, she had won. Without hesitation, he rushed her. When he found her, she was surrounded by cameras and reporters, basking in her victory. But as soon as she saw him, the light in her eyes dimmed. You didn't believe me.
I was a fool.
You were... Silence stretched between them. Then softly, Ethan murmured.
Ethan couldn't hold it anymore. Stepping closer. I love you, Isla.
Tears welled in her eyes. Do you?
I do, this time holding her face. Not because you're designer Z, not because you're brilliant, but because you're you. And he whispered the only words that mattered. I know.
Her lips parted slightly, her breath caught, because she understood what he meant.
Not just I know you are designer Z, but I know why you left. I know what I lost. I know I was a fool. And most importantly, I know I'm not letting you go again.
Ethan! Her voice was soft, almost cautious. He exhaled. God, he missed her voice. She swallowed hard, her body suddenly tense. Why didn't you say anything?
Because I was a coward. Because I was too afraid to admit that I'd fallen in love with you. Silence.
She couldn't look away. Her lips parted, her pulse racing, as if her heart was begging her to say something, to finally admit what she had spent months denying, that she missed him.
Then Ethan exhaled, pressing his forehead against hers, hand trembling and eyes pleading. I don't do love, Isla. I don't do relationships. I don't. And it terrifies me.
Isla smiled softly, reaching up to cup his face. Then let's be terrified together. And for the first time, Ethan Blackwood let someone break down his walls. For her. Months later, Isla Carter Blackwood was a name celebrated across the world. She and Ethan co-founded Z Blackwood, a fashion house that merged his empire with her genius. And as Ethan watched Isla take the stage for another show, this time, as his wife, he realized something. He had spent years chasing perfection, but perfection had found him, in the form of Isla Carter, the woman who had changed everything. The end.